Welcome, Tarnished. This is game's lore to sleep. Lower your weapons. Let the fire settle. Tonight, we're not chasing victory. We're listening to the quiet truths hidden inside Elden Ring's weapons, where mechanics, history, and intention quietly overlap. You don't need to stay focused. If you drift, that's perfectly fine. Let's begin. The truth about two-handing strength. When a Tarnished grips a weapon with both hands, a hidden mechanic takes effect. Their effective strength is multiplied by 1.5, but only for the purpose of meeting weapon requirements, not for damage scaling. This means a character with 20 strength effectively has 30 strength while two-handing, allowing them to wield massive weapons far earlier than expected. However, contrary to popular belief, two-handing does not grant a flat 50% damage increase. The real damage comes from altered movesets, heavier animations, and higher motion values, not raw stat scaling. Understanding this distinction allows players to save dozens of stat points over the course of a playthrough, reallocating them into vigor, endurance, or mind. Sometimes, knowledge weighs less than steel and strikes harder. Mogwyn's Sacred Spear and the Logic of Blood. Mogwyn's Sacred Spear is obtained by defeating Mog, Lord of Blood, and trading his remembrance at the Round Table Hold. This massive trident, like weapon scales with strength, dexterity, and arcane, demanding heavy stat investment, but rewarding it with one of the most devastating area attacks in the game. Its unique Ash of War, Bloodboon ritual, repeatedly drives the spear into the ground, causing cursed blood to erupt in violent waves. Unlike most attacks, this damage scales based on enemy maximum health, making it especially effective against bosses with enormous health pools. The weapon embodies Mog's belief that blood itself is sacred, not as a means to survive, but as a foundation for a new dynasty. To wield it is to accept that suffering is not collateral. It is the point. Death's Poker and Delayed Destruction. Death's Poker is dropped by the Deathrite bird in northern Caelid, an enemy tied closely to Ghost Flame and forbidden death rituals. The weapon scales with strength, dexterity, and intelligence, making it a rare but effective hybrid option. Its Ash of War, Ghost Flame Ignition, plants cold flame into the ground, leaving behind a dormant patch of frost. Only on the second activation does the magic detonate, releasing a massive frostbite explosion. This two-step design rewards patience and positioning, allowing players to set traps rather than react instinctively. Lore-wise, Ghost Flame represents a form of death untouched by the Erd Tree, cold, silent, and final. The weapon does not rush. It waits. The Envoy's Longhorn and Sacred Absurdity. The Envoy's Longhorn is farmed from the Oracle Envoys in Miquella's Halleck Tree, creatures whose hymns echo through the branches like misplaced prayers. This faith-scaling weapon launches streams of tracking bubbles, each one dealing strike damage and stacking rapidly. The longer the skill is held, the more bubbles are released, allowing the Tarnished to trade FP for overwhelming pressure. Despite its appearance, the weapon excels against large enemies who struggle to evade multiple projectiles. Lore-wise, the horn reflects a belief that celebration and worship need not be solemn to be divine. Sometimes the sacred arrives wrapped in absurdity. The Iron Cleaver's forward violence. The Iron Cleaver is a deceptively simple strength scaling axe, obtainable early and usable throughout the entire game. Its defining trait lies in its charged heavy attack, which causes the Tarnished to lunge forward aggressively, closing distance while delivering massive damage. This makes it especially effective against evasive enemies or players who rely on spacing. The weapon accepts a wide variety of Ashes of War, allowing it to adapt to nearly any build path. Lore-wise, the Iron Cleaver reflects a philosophy older than magic or faith, that violence, when applied decisively, does not require elegance. The meteorite staff's frozen growth. The meteorite staff is one of Elden Ring's most unusual catalysts for a simple reason. It cannot be upgraded. No smithing stones, no refinement. And yet, it remains one of the strongest staffs available throughout the early and mid-game. This glintstone staff features natural S-scaling in intelligence from the moment it is acquired, an exceptionally rare trait that allows sorcerers to deal enormous damage simply by leveling intelligence. It also passively boosts gravity sorceries, enhancing spells such as Rock Sling and Meteorite of Astal. The staff can be found very early in Caelid, resting among the ruins of the Street of Sages, an area that is dangerous but accessible with careful navigation. Many players rely on the meteorite staff well into late game, replacing it only after fully upgrading advanced catalysts like Lusat's glintstone staff or Carrion Regal Scepter. From a lore perspective, the staff is described as a fragment of a fallen star, petrified in its current form, forever locked in the moment of impact. It does not grow. It does not change. It simply remembers what it once was. The Nagakiba's hidden reach. The Nagakiba is a katana, but it behaves unlike any other in its class. Mechanically, it possesses the longest reach of any melee weapon in Elden Ring, extending farther than most players expect when first wielding it. This extra distance allows Tarnished warriors to strike enemies from ranges normally reserved for spears or thrusting swords. Despite being a katana, the Nagakiba leans heavily into thrust damage, rather than wide slashes, a consequence of its extreme blade length. The weapon scales primarily with dexterity, with secondary strength scaling, and requires 18 dexterity and 15 strength to wield effectively. It once belonged to Yura, Hunter of Bloody Fingers, and can be acquired in two ways. Very early, by finding it beneath an overpass in Limgrave, near the border of the Weeping Peninsula, if one is willing to kill Yura, or much later, by completing Yura's full quest line in the mountaintops of the Giants. In PvP, the Nagakiba's range advantage becomes especially pronounced, allowing skilled users to land hits that appear impossibly distant. Lore-wise, the blade reflects Yura's role as a hunter, favoring reach, control, and precision over brute force. The Eclipse Shotel's weaponized death. For most of FromSoftware's history, instant death mechanics were something players feared, not something they wielded. The Eclipse Shotel changed that. This curved sword is the first player usable weapon capable of inflicting deathblight, the status effect that causes instant death once fully accumulated. It is located inside the Church of the Eclipse at Castle Sol, a late-game region filled with dangerous enemies and heavy pressure. While its base damage is unremarkable, its true strength lies in its unique Ash of War, Death Flare. When activated, the blade is temporarily buffed to apply Deathblight build-up with each hit. Once the invisible meter fills, enemies die instantly, regardless of remaining health. The Eclipse Shotel scales with dexterity and faith, and performs best against slower enemies who cannot easily evade repeated strikes. Interestingly, undead enemies are immune to its effect, an ironic limitation for a weapon designed to kill through death itself. Lore-wise, the blade was left as an offering beneath a dying sun, tied to rituals surrounding eclipse worship and forbidden death. Malekith's Black Blade and the Way to Finality. Malekith's Black Blade is obtained after defeating Malekith, the Black Blade, guardian of the Rune of Death, and exchanging his remembrance at the Round Table Hold. This colossal greatsword scales with strength, dexterity, and faith, requiring heavy investment across all three, a cost that mirrors the gravity of what it represents. Its Ash of War unleashes destined death, igniting the blade with blackened flame before releasing a sweeping wave that does more than deal damage. It reduces maximum HP and continues draining life over time. Against bosses with immense health pools, this effect is devastating. Not because it overwhelms, but because it redefines the ceiling of survival itself. Lore-wise, this blade carries the force Marika tried to erase from the world. To wield it is to reintroduce mortality into a system built to deny it. The pike's practical reach. The pike is one of the longest-reaching standard spears in the lands between, and can be purchased early from a nomadic merchant in northern Limgrave. It has modest strength and dexterity requirements, scales flexibly depending on infusion, and accepts nearly every Ash of War, making it compatible with almost any build. Its true value lies in guarded combat. The pike allows players to attack while keeping a shield raised, making it ideal for guard counters, a core mechanic of Elden Ring's combat system. In PvE, this creates a safe, methodical playstyle. In PvP, it punishes impatience. Lore-wise, the pike lacks legend or spectacle, and that may be why it endures. Not all weapons are remembered because they are glorious. Some are remembered because they work. The Sword of St. Trina's induced stillness. The Sword of St. Trina can be farmed from Cleanrot Knights, enemies deeply tied to Scarlet Rot and lingering devotion. This straight sword scales with strength, dexterity, and faith, supporting balanced builds that favor versatility over specialization. Its Ash of War releases a purple sleep-inducing mist, allowing follow-up attacks to build sleep rapidly, a rare and disorienting status effect. Sleep does not kill, it interrupts. Against aggressive enemies and certain humanoid foes, this creates openings where none should exist. Lore-wise, St. Trina is associated with dreams, slumber, and an ambiguous connection to Miquella. The sword suggests a philosophy few weapons embrace, that rest can be more powerful than resistance. The Crystal Sword's early certainty. The Crystal Sword can be found lying unguarded in Liurnia of the Lakes, discovered rather than earned. It requires only modest strength and dexterity, but scales naturally with intelligence, making it an ideal early melee option for sorcerers. Unlike most weapons, the Crystal Sword deals split physical and magic damage by default, bypassing resistances that trouble pure physical builds. It can be upgraded normally and buffed further, stacking magical enhancements for consistent performance throughout the game. Lore-wise, its fragile appearance reflects crystalline magic, brittle, beautiful, and precise. It does not endure through toughness, it endures through clarity. The Blasphemous Blade sustained mercy. The Blasphemous Blade is obtained after defeating Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, and trading his remembrance at the Round Table Hold. This greatsword scales primarily with strength and faith, dealing split physical and fire damage, and requires solid investment in both to reach its full potential. Its defining feature is its Ash of War, Taker's Flame. With each wide, fiery sweep, the blade restores a percentage of the wielder's maximum health for every enemy struck. The healing stacks, meaning crowds become sustenance. In PvE, this makes the weapon unusually forgiving, allowing players to survive long encounters without retreating. In PvP, its sustain rewards spacing and timing rather than reckless aggression. Lore-wise, the blade carries the remnants of champions devoured by Rykard, their faces still visible along its surface. It does not protect the Tarnished out of kindness. It protects them because it refuses to starve. The Falling Star Beastjaw's gravitational authority. The Falling Star Beastjaw is claimed after defeating the full-grown Falling Star Beast near the 9th Mount Gelmir campsite. This colossal weapon scales with strength and intelligence, making it one of the few truly viable options for Stra/Int hybrid builds. Its Ash of War creates a gravitational singularity, pulling enemies inward before detonating with immense force and poise damage. This interaction frequently staggers even large enemies, opening them for critical hits. The jaw itself is not forged, it is harvested. Lore-wise, falling star beasts are alien entities tied to meteorites and cosmic gravity, and the weapon retains that otherworldly pull. It bends space not because it tries to, but because it remembers how. The Cross Naginata's bleeding precision. The Cross Naginata is a spear with an unusual trait. It naturally inflicts blood loss buildup, a rarity within its weapon class. It scales with strength and dexterity, favoring quality builds, and can be further enhanced with bleed-focused Ashes of War. The weapon can be acquired by defeating a specific NPC invader in Caelid, making it accessible earlier than many expect. Mechanically, its moveset blends thrusting spear attacks with sweeping slashes, allowing it to apply pressure safely while still building hemorrhage. In both PvE and PvP, its reach combined with bleed makes it exceptionally consistent. Lore-wise, the Cross Naginata reflects disciplined violence, measured, efficient, and ritualized. It does not overwhelm, it accumulates. The Winged Greathorn's ancient authority. The Winged Greathorn is obtained from ancestral followers tied to the forgotten rites of the lands between. This heavy weapon scales primarily with dexterity, an unusual trait for its size, and requires moderate strength to wield. Its Ash of War causes the horn to spin and fly autonomously, striking enemies as if guided by ancestral will rather than direct control. The attack feels ceremonial rather than aggressive. Lore-wise, the weapon originates from a time before the Erdtree's dominance, when sovereignty was tied to ritual, not doctrine. The Great Horn does not command through force. It commands because it is remembered. The Dark Moon Greatsword's measured cold. The Dark Moon Greatsword is awarded at the end of Ranni's questline, one of the longest and most deliberate journeys in the lands between. This legendary greatsword scales primarily with intelligence, while also requiring respectable strength and dexterity to wield, making it ideal for battle mage builds. Its defining trait is its charged heavy attack, which consumes FP to release a wave of frost-infused magic along the ground. Each wave deals magic damage and rapidly builds frostbite, reducing enemy defenses once triggered. Its Ash of War can be charged further, producing a frost burst around the wielder in addition to the projectile, a detail many overlook. Lore-wise, this blade is a continuation of a legacy older than the Erdtree, passed down through countless ages under different names. It does not rush its wielder. It asks them to commit, slowly, deliberately, just as Ranni herself did. The Great Mace's poise, breaking certainty. The Great Mace can be purchased from the Twin Maiden husks at the Round Table Hold after progressing their inventory. This massive hammer scales heavily with strength, requiring significant investment, but rewarding it with exceptional poise damage. Every strike pressures enemy stance, allowing even heavily armored foes to be staggered and broken with patience rather than speed. It accepts Ashes of War freely, making it adaptable despite its weight. Lore-wise, the Great Mace represents the most direct solution the lands between offers. If something refuses to move, hit it until it does. No mystery, no pretense. Eleonora's Pole Blade and Forward Momentum. Eleonora's Pole Blade is obtained by defeating Eleonora, Violet Bloody Finger, during her invasion at the Second Church of Marika in the Altus Plateau. This twin blade scales with strength, dexterity, and arcane, with arcane directly enhancing its bleed buildup. Its Ash of War, Bloodblade Dance, propels the wielder forward in a spinning assault, layering fire damage and hemorrhage simultaneously. This makes the weapon highly aggressive, rewarding continuous pressure and punishing hesitation. Lore-wise, Eleonora's weapon reflects her identity as a bloody finger, movement, pursuit, and relentless violence. It is not meant to wait. It is meant to close the distance. The Envoy's Longhorn's persistent hymn. The Envoy's Longhorn is farmed from Oracle Envoys within Miquella's Halictree. It scales with faith and fires streams of tracking bubbles that deal strike damage, an unusual and effective damage type against armored enemies. Holding the skill longer releases more bubbles, allowing FP to be converted directly into pressure. Despite its appearance, it excels against large bosses that cannot evade repeated tracking projectiles. Lore-wise, the horn represents a form of worship that never stopped celebrating, even as the world fell apart. Its power lies not in wrath, but in repetition. The Marae's Executioner Sword's lingering punishment. The Marae's Executioner Sword is obtained by defeating Elemer of the Briar at the Shaded Castle, a place steeped in decay and quiet cruelty. This twisted greatsword scales with strength and arcane, an unusual combination that favors builds focused on raw physical damage paired with status effects. Its Ash of War causes the blade to spin violently as it drills forward, tearing through enemy defenses in a sustained, punishing motion. Unlike sweeping attacks, this skill rewards alignment and timing. Once it connects, it continues. Lore-wise, the sword was once an execution tool, designed not for mercy, but for prolonged suffering. Its spiral shape reflects that intention perfectly. It does not strike to end life quickly. It strikes to remind the grafted dragon's stolen flame. The grafted dragon is claimed by defeating Godric the Grafted and exchanging his remembrance at the Round Table Hold. This fist weapon replaces the Tarnished's hand with the severed head of a dragon, embodying Godric's obsession with stolen strength. It scales with strength and faith, and uniquely boosts the power of Dragon Communion incantations, allowing it to function as both weapon and catalyst. Its skill releases a sustained breath of fire, costing a flat amount of FP rather than draining continuously, making its usage easier to control. Lore-wise, the weapon is not an achievement, it is a confession. Power taken without understanding, and wielded without restraint. Bastard Stars and the Violence of the Void. Bastard Stars is obtained by defeating Astal, natural born of the Void, deep within the Lake of Rot. This flail scales with strength, dexterity, and intelligence, demanding broad stat investment and rewarding hybrid builds. Its Ash of War releases the star at the end of its chain, spinning outward while detonating repeatedly, creating a dangerous zone of overlapping explosions. The attack is difficult to aim precisely, but devastating when positioned correctly. Lore-wise, Bastard Stars draws directly from cosmic phenomena, collapsing matter, compressed energy, and instability. It does not feel forged, it feels contained. The long-halved axe's unexpected reach. The long-halved axe can be found early in Limgrave, making it accessible to new Tarnished, who favor strength-based builds. Unlike most axes, it features an extended handle, granting it significantly more reach than its category suggests. The weapon scales primarily with strength and accepts Ashes of War freely, allowing it to adapt to multiple playstyles. In combat, its longer swings catch enemies who attempt to space just beyond normal axe range, a subtle but consistent advantage. Lore-wise, the long-halved axe reflects a simple truth. Sometimes survival is just a matter of standing a little farther away. The Sword of Milos and Borrowed Agony. The Sword of Milos is obtained by defeating the Dung Eater in the subterranean sewers beneath Lendel before completing his questline. This grotesque greatsword is fashioned from the spine of a giant, a detail confirmed by its item description, and it carries that origin both mechanically and thematically. The weapon scales with strength and dexterity, favoring quality builds, and features the Ash of War Shriek of Melos. When activated, the sword emits a disturbing cry that reduces enemy defense, allowing follow-up attacks to deal increased damage. This debuff makes the weapon especially effective in prolonged fights, or when paired with heavier hitting tools. Lore-wise, the idea that the blade still screams suggests that Melos' suffering was never fully extinguished. It was repurposed. Pain, in the lands between, rarely ends. It is recycled, the Claymore's timeless balance. The Claymore can be found early by defeating the misbegotten warrior at Castle Morn in the Weeping Peninsula. It is a greatsword known not for extremes, but for balance. The weapon scales evenly with strength and dexterity, making it the definitive choice for quality builds and adaptable playstyles. Its moveset includes both wide horizontal sweeps and precise thrusting attacks, allowing it to answer nearly every combat scenario. The Claymore accepts Ashes of War freely, further increasing its versatility. Lore-wise, this blade appears across multiple ages and kingdoms, unchanged in purpose. It survives not because it is exceptional, but because it is reliable. The Rotten Crystal Spear's calculated decay. The Rotten Crystal Spear is found in Elphael, Brace of the Halic Tree, an endgame region defined by rot, resilience, and quiet suffering. This heavy thrusting weapon scales with strength and dexterity, requiring significant physical investment. Unlike most Scarlet Rot weapons that rely on rapid strikes, this spear applies rot through powerful, guard-breaking thrusts, allowing it to infect enemies even through defenses. Its Ash of War enhances forward momentum, piercing shields while building additional rot. Lore-wise, the spear's crystalline structure links it to the Crystalians, beings whose bodies blur the line between life and mineral. Here, rot is not weakness, it is persistence. The Guardian Sword Spear's dual nature. The Guardian Sword Spear is dropped by Erdtree Guardians, most commonly found near sacred tree sites such as the Minor Erdtrees and Bestial Sanctum. Despite its name, the weapon is classified as a halberd, granting it excellent reach and versatile attacks. It scales primarily with strength and dexterity, favoring quality builds, and features a fast, fluid move set uncharacteristic of heavier polearms. Its Ash of War performs a spinning multi-hit attack that builds status effects rapidly when infused. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects its guardians, disciplined, relentless, and designed to defend something greater than themselves. It is not aggressive. It is vigilant. The Sacred Relic Sword's golden erasure. The Sacred Relic Sword is obtained only after defeating the final boss of Elden Ring and exchanging their remembrance with Enya at the Round Table Hold. This massive blade scales primarily with faith and dexterity, requiring substantial investment in both to unlock its full potential. Its Ash of War, Wave of Gold, releases a vast arc of holy energy that travels across the ground, erasing nearly everything in its path. Mechanically, this makes it the most efficient weapon in the game for clearing large groups of weaker enemies, a fact widely used by rune farmers near the Palace Approach Ledge Road. Lore-wise, the sword is formed from the remains of a god, embodying the Elden Ring's authority after its shattering. It does not struggle. It removes. Order here is not maintained through conflict, but through absence. The Great Mace's crushing patience. The Great Mace can be purchased from the Twin Maiden Husks after expanding their inventory through bell bearings. This colossal strike weapon scales heavily with strength, demanding commitment but rewarding it with some of the highest poise damage in the game. Each hit pressures enemy stance, often staggering even heavily armored foes. After only a few blows, the Great Mace accepts ashes of war freely, allowing players to tailor its behavior despite its weight. Lore-wise, the weapon represents a philosophy that predates sorcery and faith alike. Problems are solved not through elegance, but through repetition. The Urumi's flexible precision. The Urumi is found within Keria Manor, hidden among its many traps and spectral defenders. This unique whipsword hybrid scales with strength and dexterity, making it suitable for quality builds that favor spacing and control. Unlike most whips, the Urumi can perform thrusting attacks, dealing pierce damage in addition to sweeping slashes. This grants it versatility against enemies resistant to standard whip strikes. Whips cannot be parried, a subtle but powerful advantage in PvP. Lore-wise, the Urumi reflects Carian ingenuity, blending discipline with unpredictability, control with reach. It punishes those who rely too heavily on precision by refusing to be precise itself. The Cross Naginata's discipline bloodletting. The Cross Naginata is obtained by defeating a specific NPC invader in Caelid, making it available far earlier than many legendary weapons. It scales with strength and dexterity, and naturally inflicts blood loss buildup, a rare trait for spears. Its moveset blends thrusts and slashes, allowing it to pressure safely, while steadily filling hemorrhage meters. In both PvE and PvP, this makes it one of the most consistent bleed weapons in the game. Lore-wise, the weapon suggests ritualized violence, controlled, measured, and relentless. It does not rush the wound, it lets it deepen. The hook claws' relentless pressure. The hook claws are found within Stormvale Castle, tucked away in a side area many Tarnished pass without noticing. These fist weapons scale primarily with dexterity, with secondary strength scaling, and excel through attack speed rather than raw damage. Each strike lands quickly, and when power stanced, the claws unleash a rapid flurry that fills status meters with alarming efficiency. They are especially effective when infused with bleed or poison, allowing status effects to trigger far faster than heavier weapons could manage. In PvP, their strength lies in suffocation, denying opponents space and time to recover. Lore-wise, the hook claws feel improvised and personal. They are not ceremonial, they are desperate. Bastard Stars and Controlled Catastrophe. Bastard Stars is obtained by defeating Astal, natural born of the void, deep beneath the lands between. This flail scales with strength, dexterity, and intelligence, demanding hybrid investment and rewarding it with one of the game's most unusual area attack. Its Ash of War releases the star at the end of the chain, spinning it outward as it detonates repeatedly, creating overlapping explosions that punish anything caught nearby. The attack is difficult to aim precisely, but devastating when enemies are forced into close proximity. Lore-wise, the weapon represents cosmic instability, a fragment of collapse held together just long enough to be useful. It does not feel safe to wield, and that is intentional. The Pike's Guarded Patience. The pike can be purchased early from a nomadic merchant in northern Limgrave, making it accessible almost immediately. It has modest strength and dexterity requirements, scales flexibly depending on infusion, and accepts nearly every Ash of War. Its defining advantage is its exceptional reach, the longest among standard spears. This makes it ideal for guard counterplay, allowing Tarnished to block attacks and retaliate without lowering their shield. Lore-wise, the pike is unremarkable, and that is precisely why it survives. In a world of excess, restraint endures. Eleonora's Pole Blade and Forward Devotion. Eleonora's Pole Blade is acquired by defeating Eleonora, Violet Bloody Finger, during her invasion at the Second Church of Marika in the Altus Plateau. This twin blade scales with strength, dexterity, and arcane, with arcane enhancing its native bleed buildup. Its Ash of War, Bloodblade Dance, propels the wielder forward in a spinning assault, layering fire damage and hemorrhage with each hit. The weapon rewards constant pressure. Stopping breaks the rhythm, continuing sustains it. Lore-wise, the pole blade reflects the bloody fingers themselves, pursuit without pause, devotion without restraint. The magma blades, patient reward. The magma blades are among the most difficult weapons to obtain, not because of a powerful boss, but because of persistence. They drop from man-serpents wielding magma swords in Volcano Manor with an infamously low drop rate. Each blade scales with strength, dexterity, and faith, dealing split physical and fire damage. Their heavy attacks launch magma projectiles that linger on the ground, punishing enemies who advance carelessly. When power stanced, the blades create a relentless rhythm of slashes and molten bursts, overwhelming through repetition rather than burst damage. Lore-wise, the weapons feel less forged and more inhabited, reflecting Volcano Manor's devotion to suffering as transformation. They reward those who wait, Death's Poker and the Art of Delay. Death's Poker is dropped by a Deathrite bird in northern Caelid, an enemy closely tied to ghost flame rituals and forbidden death. This greatsword scales with strength, dexterity, and intelligence, supporting hybrid builds that favor planning over aggression. Its Ash of War, Ghost Flame Ignition, unfolds in 2 steps. First, the blade plants cold flame into the ground, then, on command, it detonates, releasing a massive frostbite explosion. This delayed design allows Tarnished to control space, setting traps rather than reacting. Lore-wise, Ghost Flame represents death untouched by the Erdtree, cold, silent, and patient. The weapon does not chase, it waits. The Dragon Communion Seal's Shared Hunger. The Dragon Communion Seal can be found in the Fringefolk hero's grave, near the starting area, though accessing it requires Stone's Ward keys and careful navigation. This sacred seal scales with faith and arcane, a rare pairing that allows dragon incantations to benefit from blood-focused builds. It enhances Dragon Communion incantations, allowing Tarnished to breathe fire, rot, or lightning without abandoning melee effectiveness. Mechanically, it bridges 2 paths that were never meant to meet. Lore-wise, the seal represents consumption, power gained not through devotion, but through devouring. Dragon Communion is not worship, it is inheritance by force. The Great Mace's methodical force. The Great Mace can be purchased from the twin maiden husks after expanding their inventory with bell bearings. This colossal hammer scales heavily with strength, requiring commitment but delivering exceptional poise damage. Each blow pressures enemy stance, often staggering even heavily armored foes after only a few strikes. The weapon accepts Ashes of War freely, allowing players to tailor its behavior despite its weight. Lore-wise, the Great Mace reflects an older truth of the lands between. When resistance persists, repetition prevails. The Guardian Sword Spear's watchful reach. The Guardian Sword Spear is dropped by Erdtree Guardians, often encountered near minor Erdtrees and sacred sites across the lands between. Despite its name, it is classified as a halberd, granting it excellent reach and a versatile move set that blends thrusts with sweeping cuts. The weapon scales with strength and dexterity, favoring quality builds, and requires moderate investment to wield effectively. Its Ash of War performs a fast, spinning multi-hit attack, making it particularly effective when infused to build status effects such as bleed or frostbite. In combat, it excels at mid-range control, close enough to pressure, far enough to remain safe. Lore-wise, the weapon mirrors its bearers. It does not hunt, it watches. The Urumi's unpredictable line. The Urumi is found within Carrier Manor, hidden among traps and spectral defenders loyal to the Carrion royal family. This unique whip-blade hybrid scales with strength and dexterity and behaves unlike any other whip in the game. While most whips deal only strike damage, the Urumi can also perform piercing thrusts, allowing it to exploit weaknesses that traditional whips cannot. Like all whips, it cannot be parried, a subtle but powerful advantage in PvP encounters. Lore-wise, the Urumi reflects Carrion philosophy, control through unpredictability. It bends rather than breaks, and punishes those who expect certainty. The long-halved axe's quiet advantage. The long-halved axe can be found early in Limgrave, making it accessible to new Tarnished seeking strength-based options. Unlike standard axes, its extended handle grants it greater reach, allowing attacks to land from distances enemies often misjudge. The weapon scales primarily with strength, accepts ashes of war freely, and requires modest stat investment. In mounted combat, its longer reach proves especially effective, allowing riders to strike grounded foes more reliably. Lore-wise, the axe reflects a practical adaptation, a simple change that shifts the outcome of countless encounters. Sometimes survival is just better spacing. The Sacred Relic Sword's repeating end. The Sacred Relic Sword is acquired after completing the main story and exchanging the final boss's remembrance with Enya at the Round Table Hold. It scales with faith and dexterity and features one of the most powerful clearing skills in the game, Wave of Gold. When activated, a vast arc of holy energy travels forward, erasing groups of enemies with minimal effort. Mechanically, this makes the blade unrivaled for rune farming and crowd control. Lore-wise, the sword represents divine authority crystallized, not to challenge the world, but to reset it. Each swing feels less like an attack, and more like a conclusion. The Sword of Night and Flame's balanced demand. The Sword of Night and Flame is found in Carrier Manor, hidden behind an illusionary wall, and reachable only through careful exploration of the upper walkways. This legendary straight sword demands balance from its wielder, requiring strength and dexterity alongside substantial intelligence and faith. Its true identity reveals itself through its unique stance skill. A light follow-up releases a sweeping arc of flame, while a heavy follow-up fires a concentrated beam of sorcery, a restrained echo of Comet Azure. Mechanically, the weapon rewards preparation and positioning rather than frantic combat. Lore-wise, the blade represents the marriage of opposing forces, fire and starlight, unified not through dominance, but coexistence. The Nox Flowing Sword's shifting form. The Nox Flowing Sword is found in Carrier Manor, concealed among the relics of the Nox civilization. At rest, it behaves like a standard curved sword. When its Ash of War is activated, the blade liquefies, extending into a whip-like form that dramatically increases its reach and alters its attack pattern. The weapon scales with dexterity and intelligence, favoring hybrid builds that blend agility with sorcery. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects the Nox themselves, adaptive, fluid, and resistant to permanence. It refuses to remain fixed, and punishes those who expect it to. The grafted blade greatsword's borrowed might. The grafted blade greatsword is obtained by defeating the Leonine Misbegotten at Castle Morn in the Weeping Peninsula. This colossal weapon requires high strength and dexterity, making it inaccessible early, unless its unique skill is considered. When activated, the blade temporarily raises all attributes by 5 points, granting a brief surge of borrowed power. Mechanically, this allows Tarnished to meet weapon or spell requirements they normally could not, if only for a moment. Lore-wise, the blade reflects a recurring theme in the lands between. Power taken rather than earned always fades. Malekith's Black Blade's lingering curse. Malekith's Black Blade is acquired by exchanging the remembrance of Malekith, the Black Blade, at the Round Table Hold. This colossal sword scales with strength, dexterity, and faith, demanding heavy investment. Its Ash of War unleashes destined death, reducing enemy maximum HP and applying a damage over time effect that persists beyond the initial strike. Mechanically, it excels against bosses with vast health pools, shrinking their endurance rather than overwhelming it. Lore-wise, the blade embodies the force Marika tried to erase, the certainty that all things must end. It does not kill quickly. It ensures nothing escapes. The Eclipse Shotel's measured end. The Eclipse Shotel is found within the Church of the Eclipse at Castle Sol, a late-game fortress defined by ritual and cold devotion. This curved sword scales with dexterity and faith, and at first glance appears unremarkable in raw damage. Its true nature is revealed through its unique Ash of War, Death Flare. When activated, the blade becomes capable of building Deathblight, an invisible meter that, once filled, causes instant death regardless of remaining health. This makes the weapon particularly effective against slower enemies and certain bosses that struggle to disengage. Interestingly, undead foes are immune, a quiet irony for a blade devoted to death. Lore-wise, the weapon was left as an offering beneath a dying sun, tied to eclipse worship and forbidden rites surrounding mortality. It does not hurry death, it invites it. The Meteorite Staff's enduring alignment. The Meteorite Staff is discovered in Caelid, resting among the ruins of the Street of Sages, a place shaped by fallen stars and corrupted magic. Unlike nearly every other catalyst in the game, this staff cannot be upgraded. Instead, it begins with S-tier intelligence scaling, making it exceptionally powerful the moment it is acquired. It also provides a passive bonus to gravity sorceries, enhancing spells such as Rock Sling and Meteorite of Estelle. Mechanically, this allows sorcerers to deal massive damage early, often carrying the staff well into late game, before replacing it with fully upgraded alternatives. Lore-wise, the staff is described as a fragment of a meteorite, petrified in the moment of impact. It does not grow stronger. It remembers how strong it already was. The Cross Naginata's patient pressure. The Cross Naginata is obtained by defeating a specific NPC invader in Caelid, making it accessible earlier than many legendary weapons. This spear scales with strength and dexterity and naturally inflicts blood loss buildup, a rare trait for its class. Its move set blends thrusting attacks with sweeping slashes, allowing it to pressure enemies safely while steadily building hemorrhage. In PvP, this combination of reach and bleed makes it particularly oppressive, punishing spacing mistakes with inevitability rather than burst. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects disciplined violence, controlled, ritualized, and unrelenting. It does not chase the wound, it waits for it to deepen. The Envoy's Longhorn's patient devotion. The Envoy's Longhorn is farmed from Oracle Envoys in Miquella's Halictree, beings whose hymns echo endlessly through the branches. This weapon scales with faith and releases streams of tracking bubbles that deal strike damage, an unusual and effective damage type against armored foes. Holding the skill longer releases more bubbles, allowing the Tarnished to convert FP directly into sustained pressure. Mechanically, it performs best against large bosses who cannot easily evade the tracking projectiles. Lore-wise, the horn reflects a form of worship that never ceased celebrating, even as the world decayed. Its power lies not in wrath, but in persistence. The grafted dragon's measured flame. The grafted dragon is obtained by exchanging the remembrance of Godric the Grafted at the Round Table Hold. This fist weapon replaces the Tarnished's hand with the severed head of a dragon, and it scales with strength and faith, with faith enhancing its fire-based damage. Its skill unleashes a sustained dragon flame breath, costing a fixed amount of FP rather than draining continuously, allowing controlled use rather than pan. Unlike dragon incantations, the attack can be maintained while repositioning, making it surprisingly effective in confined spaces. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects Godric's obsession with stolen power. It is not mastery, it is imitation, held together by desperation rather than understanding. The Blasphemous Blade's long survival. The Blasphemous Blade is acquired by defeating Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, and exchanging his remembrance. This greatsword scales with strength and faith, dealing split physical and fire damage. Its Ash of War, Taker's Flames, sends a wave of fire forward that restores health for every enemy struck, turning crowds into sustenance. Mechanically, this allows players to remain aggressive without retreating, especially during extended PvE encounters. Lore-wise, the blade carries the remains of champions devoured by Rykard. It does not protect out of mercy, it feeds because it must. The Falling Star Beast Jaw's crushing gravity. The Falling Star Beast Jaw is obtained by defeating the full-grown Falling Star Beast near Mount Gelmir. This colossal weapon scales with strength and intelligence, supporting hybrid builds that blend raw force with gravity magic. Its Ash of War creates a gravitational implosion, pulling enemies inward before detonating with immense poise damage. This frequently staggers even large foes, opening them to critical attacks. Lore-wise, the jaw belongs to a creature shaped by cosmic forces. It bends space not through effort, but through memory. The Sword of Milas' lingering cry. The Sword of Milas is obtained by defeating the Dung Eater in Lendel's subterranean sewers before completing his questline. This grotesque greatsword scales with strength and dexterity, and features the Ash of War Shriek of Milas, which lowers enemy defenses. Mechanically, this debuff allows follow-up attacks to deal significantly increased damage, especially during prolonged fights. Lore-wise, the blade is formed from the spine of a tormented giant. Its scream was never silenced. It was repurposed. The Dragon King's Crag Blade and Vanishing Time. The Dragon King's Crag Blade is obtained by defeating Dragon Lord Placidusax, a hidden boss found by lying down at the heart of crumbling Ferrum Azula. This heavy thrusting sword scales with strength and dexterity, favoring discipline melee, builds that value timing over speed. Its Ash of War cloaks the Tarnished in ancient red lightning, allowing them to briefly dissolve into a storm and reappear forward in a piercing strike. During this moment, the wielder becomes nearly untouchable. Damage passes through where they once stood. Mechanically, this makes the weapon exceptional for repositioning and punishing openings, particularly in PvP. Lore-wise, the blade carries lightning from a time before the Erdtree, power tied to a lord who waited outside of time itself. The weapon does not move forward. It skips Bastard Stars and the collapse of control. Bastard Stars is acquired after defeating Astel, natural born of the void, deep beneath the lake of rot. This flail scales with strength, dexterity, and intelligence, demanding broad investment and rewarding hybrid builds. Its ash of war releases the star at the end of its chain, causing it to spin outward, while detonating repeatedly. Each explosion overlaps the last, creating a zone of unpredictable destruction that punishes enemies caught too close. Mechanically, it excels in confined arenas and against large targets. Lore-wise, the weapon feels less forged than restrained, a fragment of cosmic collapse barely contained. It is not meant to be controlled, only directed. The Guardian Sword Spear's disciplined flow. The Guardian Sword Spear drops from Erdtree Guardians stationed near minor Erdtrees across the lands between. Though classified as a halberd, it moves with surprising speed, blending reach with fluidity. It scales with strength and dexterity, making it ideal for quality builds, and accepts ashes of war that enhance status build-up. Mechanically, it rewards spacing and timing, allowing Tarnished to pressure without overcommitting. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects its guardians. Always present, never reckless. The long-halved axe's mounted advantage. The long-halved axe can be found early in Limgrave, often overlooked due to its simple appearance. It scales primarily with strength and features an extended handle that grants additional reach. This becomes especially noticeable in mounted combat, where its longer swing radius allows reliable hits against ground-based enemies. Mechanically, it provides consistency where shorter weapons fail. Lore-wise, the axe reflects a simple adaptation, a reminder that small changes can determine survival. The Iron Cleaver's forward commitment. The Iron Cleaver can be found early in the lands between, most commonly carried by enemies in Limgrave and surrounding regions. This axe scales primarily with strength, with modest dexterity requirements, making it accessible to physical builds early on. What sets it apart is its charged heavy attack. Rather than rooting the wielder in place, the Iron Cleaver lunges forward during the charge, closing distance while delivering a crushing blow. Mechanically, this allows Tarnished to punish evasive enemies or players who rely too heavily on spacing. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects a simple truth of the lands between. Violence does not always advance cautiously. Sometimes it commits. The pike's shielded patience. The pike is sold by a nomadic merchant in northern Limgrave, making it one of the earliest long-reach weapons available. It requires modest strength and dexterity, scales flexibly depending on infusion, and accepts nearly all ashes of war. Its defining feature is its exceptional reach, the longest of any standard spear. This allows Tarnished to attack while keeping their shield raised, making it ideal for guard counterplay, a core defensive mechanic. In PvE, it enables methodical progress. In PvP, it punishes impatience. Lore-wise, the pike carries no legend. It survives because it works. Helfen's Steeple and the flame that waits. Helfen's Steeple is obtained by defeating a Tibia Mariner in the mountaintops of the Giants, an enemy tied to death rites and forgotten passage. This greatsword scales with strength, dexterity, and intelligence, supporting hybrid builds that embrace death sorceries. Its unique skill coats the blade in ghost flame, increasing magic damage without draining FP over time. Mechanically, this allows sustained pressure without constant resource management. Lore-wise, Helfen is described as a lampwood that guides the dead, a silent marker rather than a threat. The blade does not burn brightly, it waits until it is needed. The Eclipse Crest Heater Shield's quiet recovery. The Eclipse Crest Heater Shield is found at Castle Sol, near the same region that houses the Eclipse Hotel. Unlike most shields, It passively restores HP over time while equipped. This regeneration is slow, subtle, and often overlooked, but over long encounters, it accumulates into meaningful survival. Mechanically, it rewards patience and defensive play rather than reactionary healing. Lore-wise, the shield reflects Eclipse worship itself, a belief in cycles rather than endings. Survival here is not dramatic, it is continuous. The Sword of St. Trina's gentle interruption. The Sword of St. Trina is obtained from Cleanrot Knights, enemies found in regions touched by rot and devotion, such as Kaled and the Halictree. This straight sword scales with strength, dexterity, and faith, making it flexible for balanced builds. Its unique Ash of War releases a violet mist that builds sleep, a rare status effect that causes enemies to collapse once the meter fills. Mechanically, sleep does not deal damage, it creates opportunity. Against aggressive enemies and certain humanoid foes, it opens windows where none should exist. Lore-wise, St. Trina is associated with dreams and slumber, often linked to Miquella. The sword does not conquer, it quiets, the ripple blade's flowing faith. The ripple blade is sold by Pidia, Carrion Servant, hidden beneath Carrier Manor. This axe, like weapon, scales almost entirely with arcane, a rarity among melee arms. It cannot be buffed with Ashes of War, but it greatly enhances status build-up, especially when paired with consumables like poison or sleep grease. Mechanically, it rewards preparation rather than aggression, turning external effects into its true source of power. Lore-wise, the blade's flowing design reflects its philosophy. Power does not strike here, it spreads. The Dragon Halberd's Frozen Storm. The Dragon Halberd is dropped by a Dragonkin soldier in Siofra River, an underground region steeped in forgotten experimentation. This halberd scales with strength and dexterity, and requires moderate faith to fully benefit from its skill. When activated, the weapon coats itself in frost and lightning, increasing damage and inflicting frostbite. Mechanically, this dual element buff allows it to pressure enemies quickly, stacking damage and debuffs simultaneously. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects failed attempts to replicate dragon power, strength borrowed, but never perfected. The Flamberge's Bleeding Weight. The Flamberge can be found in Redmane Castle, carried by a specific enemy, and easily missed during the chaos of the region. This greatsword scales with strength and dexterity and naturally inflicts bleed build-up, a rare trait for its class. Mechanically, this allows heavy, deliberate swings to contribute to hemorrhage over time, rewarding patience rather than speed. Lore-wise, the blade's wavy edge reflects ceremonial execution, violence made ritual. It does not rush the wound, it deepens it. The Albinauric Staff's quiet efficiency. The Albinauric Staff can be obtained from an Albinauric enemy in Volcano Manor, an area defined by exile and experimentation. This glintstone staff scales primarily with arcane, rather than intelligence, a rarity among sorcery catalysts. Mechanically, this allows sorcerers who invest in arcane for bleed or status-focused builds to cast spells effectively, without splitting stats excessively. It performs best at mid-range, favoring consistency over raw burst. Lore-wise, Albinaurics are artificial beings, created rather than born. The staff reflects that origin, magic adapted, not inherited. It works not because it is perfect, but because it is sufficient. The Poisoned Hand's Lingering Touch. The Poisoned Hand is obtained by defeating an enemy in Kaled, a land where rot and poison saturate everything that breathes. This fist weapon scales with strength and dexterity, but its true value lies in its innate poison buildup. When power stanced, repeated strikes quickly fill poison meters, allowing Tarnished to disengage, while damage continues to tick. Mechanically, it rewards hit and withdraw tactics rather than prolonged combat. Lore-wise, the weapon feels improvised, survival-focused, rather than ceremonial. It does not overpower. It waits. The Bloodhound Fang's curved memory. The Bloodhound Fang is obtained by defeating the Bloodhound Knight Darrywil in the Forlorn Hound Evergaol in Limgrave. This curved greatsword scales with strength and dexterity and naturally inflicts bleed buildup. Its unique skill allows the wielder to strike, retreat instantly, and then re-engage, a flowing sequence that mirrors the movement of the Bloodhound Knights themselves. Mechanically, it excels at punishing aggression while maintaining safety. Lore-wise, the blade reflects loyalty through motion, never standing still, never hesitating. It remembers every step it takes. The Golden Order Seal's structured faith. The Golden Order Seal is obtained by exploring Lendel, royal capital, among the teachings of the Golden Order. This sacred seal scales with intelligence and faith, allowing incantations to benefit from scholarly devotion as much as belief. Mechanically, it supports hybrid caster builds that blur the line between sorcery and prayer. Lore-wise, the seal represents the Golden Order's attempt to codify faith, to organize belief into structure and law. Prayer here is not emotion. It is doctrine. The Great Shield Talisman's quiet mathematics. The Great Shield Talisman is found in Dragonbarrow Cave in Caelid, guarded by beasts far more aggressive than the reward suggests. While not a weapon itself, it fundamentally changes how great shields behave in combat. Mechanically, the talisman reduces stamina loss when blocking, allowing Tarnished to absorb repeated heavy blows without guard breaking. When paired with high stability shields, this turns defense into endurance rather than reaction. Lore-wise, the talisman reflects an older philosophy of warfare. Survival is not about striking harder, but about refusing to fall. The pulley crossbow's mechanical precision. The pulley crossbow is found atop Mount Gelmir, near siege equipment left behind by long abandoned campaigns. Unlike standard crossbows, it fires 3 bolts in rapid succession, each consuming ammunition independently. Mechanically, this allows burst damage at range, especially when paired with status bolts such as bleed or sleep. It scales minimally with stats, making it equally effective across builds. Lore-wise, the pulley crossbow feels industrial, a tool built for efficiency, not artistry. It does not ask for skill. It demands preparation. The rusted anchor's unlikely strength. The rusted anchor is found in Morn Tunnel, in the Weeping Peninsula, lodged deep in stone as if forgotten mid-journey. Despite its appearance, the anchor is classified as a great axe and scales primarily with strength. Mechanically, it deals pierce damage rather than standard strike or slash, allowing it to benefit from counter-hit bonuses usually reserved for thrusting weapons. This makes it especially effective when timing attacks against incoming blows. Lore-wise, the anchor represents halted progress, journeys ended prematurely. Yet in the hands of a Tarnished, even stagnation becomes momentum. The Ul Palace Ruin Spear's forgotten grip. The Ul Palace Ruin Spear is dropped by enemies in the underground ruins of Siofra River, remnants of a civilization erased long before the Erdtree's rise. This spear scales with strength and dexterity, favoring balanced physical builds. Its defining trait is a multi-hit spinning attack that builds status effects rapidly when infused. Mechanically, it excels in close quarters, where movement is limited. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects a culture lost to time. It survives not because it was remembered, but because it was buried. The black bow's mounted patience. The black bow is found on the rooftops of Lendel, royal capital, tucked away in a place easy to miss amid the city's vertical paths. This longbow scales primarily with dexterity, requiring modest strength to wield. What sets it apart is its compatibility with barrage, allowing rapid fire shots while maintaining mobility. Unlike great bows, it can be used effectively on horseback, making it one of the strongest ranged tools for mounted combat. Lore-wise, the bow reflects adaptability, a weapon meant for pursuit rather than siege. It does not dominate the battlefield, it follows it. The cane sword's polite deception. The cane sword can be purchased early from a nomadic merchant, presenting itself as little more than a walking aid. Mechanically, it functions as a straight sword, scaling with strength and dexterity, and accepting ashes of war freely. Its lightweight makes it efficient for low-endurance builds, while its innocuous appearance often causes enemies and players to underestimate it. Lore-wise, the weapon embodies deception through civility. Danger here is hidden behind manners. The Gravelstone Seal's lightning memory. The Gravelstone Seal is found in Lendl, carried by knights loyal to ancient dragon worship. This sacred seal scales with faith and provides a significant boost to dragon cult incantations, particularly lightning-based spells. Mechanically, it allows faith builds to specialize in ranged pressure without abandoning melee capability. Lore-wise, the seal preserves a form of worship older than the Golden Order, reverence not for law, but for storm. Lightning here is not chaos, it is tradition, the celebrant's skull's unsettling reward. The celebrant's skull is dropped by celebrants in Dominula, Windmill Village, a place where joy and violence blend uneasily. This hammer scales with strength, and while its base damage is modest, it carries a strange effect. Each strike grants a small number of runes. Mechanically, this makes it inefficient for combat, but symbolic in purpose. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects a ritualistic relationship with death, where killing is celebration and reward is immediate. It does not make one stronger, it makes death profitable. The Misericord's precise mercy. The Misericord can be found early in Stormvale Castle, resting quietly in an armory many Tarnished rush past. This dagger scales primarily with dexterity, with minimal strength requirements. What makes it remarkable is its exceptionally high critical modifier, the highest of any dagger in the lands between. Mechanically, this turns backstabs and ripostes into decisive moments, especially when paired with parry-focused shields or stance-breaking weapons. Lore-wise, the Misericord was historically a blade of mercy, meant to end suffering swiftly. Here, it serves the same purpose. It does not prolong a fight, it finishes it. The Eclipse Crest Great Shield's Patient Eclipse. The Eclipse Crest Great Shield is found within Castle Sol, near the same rites that birthed the Eclipse Shotel. This great shield boasts high guard boost, reducing stamina loss when blocking heavy attacks. Unlike most shields, it also provides slow HP regeneration while equipped. Mechanically, this encourages a defensive, measured approach, allowing Tarnished to weather encounters without frequent healing. Lore-wise, Eclipse worship embraced cycles rather than absolutes. The shield reflects that belief. Survival here is not dramatic, it is gradual. The Beastman's Cleaver's ferocity. The Beastman's Cleaver is dropped by Beastmen of Farum Azula, enemies bound to a crumbling world outside time. This curved greatsword scales heavily with strength, with secondary dexterity scaling. Its wide, aggressive swings pressure multiple enemies at once, making it especially effective in crowded encounters. Mechanically, it favors commitment, wide arcs that punish hesitation. Lore-wise, the cleaver reflects its bearers, untamed, uncompromising, still fighting long after their world began to fall. The Staff of Loss's invisible focus. The Staff of Loss is found in Celia, town of sorcery, hidden among ruins cloaked in illusion. This staff scales with intelligence, and while its base sorcery scaling is modest, it provides a powerful bonus. It enhances night sorceries, such as Night Comet and Night Shard, allowing them to bypass enemy dodge behavior. Mechanically, this turns subtle spells into reliable damage against foes that react aggressively. Lore-wise, the staff belongs to the assassins of Celia, magic meant to be unseen rather than overwhelming. Power here hides the Rejuvia dagger's sudden pressure. The Rejuvia is obtained very early by defeating Bloody Finger Neregus, an NPC invader encountered near Murkwater Cave in Limgrave. This dagger scales with dexterity and arcane, with arcane directly increasing its bleed buildup. Its Ash of War launches a blood-red projectile, allowing a dagger, typically a close-range weapon, to apply pressure from a distance. Mechanically, this makes Rejuvia exceptionally strong in early PvP and against aggressive enemies who expect safety in spacing. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects the Bloody Fingers themselves. Violence here is not confined to proximity, it reaches. The Turtleshell Shield's endurance lesson. The Turtleshell Shield is found atop Weeping Peninsula, resting quietly near a tower far from the main roads. This medium shield provides modest physical protection, but its value lies elsewhere. When equipped, it increases stamina recovery speed, a passive effect that applies even while attacking. Mechanically, this benefits nearly every build. Faster stamina regeneration means more attacks, more blocks, and quicker recovery. Lore-wise, the shield embodies patience. Progress comes not from speed, but from persistence. The Executioner's Great Axe is hidden precision. The Executioner's Great Axe is dropped by skeleton enemies, most commonly found in catacombs scattered across the lands between. This massive axe scales heavily with strength and requires significant endurance to wield effectively. What sets it apart is its increased critical damage modifier, an unusual trait for such a heavy weapon. Mechanically, this makes it devastating when paired with stance-breaking attacks or guard counters. Lore-wise, the axe reflects ritual execution, where finality is precise, not chaotic. The strike that matters is the last one, the Prince of Death Staff's divided power. The Prince of Death Staff is found in Deeproot Depths, near the remains of those who live in death. This staff scales with both intelligence and faith, making it ideal for hybrid caster builds that embrace death sorceries. Its effectiveness grows only when both stats are invested in equally, a deliberate design choice. Mechanically, this rewards commitment to balance rather than specialization. Lore-wise, the staff reflects the Prince of Death himself, existing between states, neither living nor gone. Power here is shared. The Parrying Dagger's narrow window. The Parrying Dagger can be purchased early from a merchant in Stormvale Castle, often overlooked in favor of shields. This dagger scales with dexterity, with minimal strength requirements, and features an enhanced parry window compared to standard daggers. Mechanically, it allows faster recovery after failed parries, making it forgiving for players learning timing-based defense. Its low weight also frees endurance for dodging and repositioning. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects restraint. It does not overpower attacks, it redirects them. The Raptor Talon's aerial aggression. The Raptor Talons are found in Sage's Cave on the Altus Plateau, hidden behind illusionary walls. These claw weapons scale primarily with dexterity and excel at rapid multi-hit pressure, Their defining trait is an increased damage bonus when attacking mid-air, synergizing naturally with jump attacks. Mechanically, this pairs well with talismans that enhance jumping strikes, turning vertical movement into offense. Lore-wise, the talons reflect predatory combat, striking from above, retreating before retaliation. The warped axe is unstable power. The warped axe is dropped by omen enemies, most commonly found in Lendl's underground regions. This axe scales heavily with strength, but also gains unusual benefit from strength scaling bonuses, allowing it to reach higher damage than expected. Mechanically, its shorter reach is compensated by raw impact and fast recovery. Lore-wise, the weapon's twisted form mirrors the omen themselves, strength distorted rather than refined. It hits hard, but unevenly. The Academy Glintstone Staff's early reliability. The Academy Glintstone Staff is found in Raya Lucaria Academy, among the sorcerers who once defined Glintstone study. It scales with intelligence and offers reliable sorcery scaling without drawbacks. Mechanically, it serves as a stable upgrade path for sorcerers before reaching late-game catalysts. Lore-wise, the staff represents institutional magic, consistent, predictable, and standardized. It does not excel, it endures. The buckler's forgiving timing. The buckler can be purchased early from Gatekeeper Gostock within Stormvale Castle, often dismissed as a beginner's tool. This small shield offers modest physical protection, but its true value lies in its unique parry animation, which provides a longer and more forgiving parry window than standard shields. Mechanically, this makes it ideal for learning parry timing against humanoid enemies and certain bosses. Its low weight also allows Tarnished to remain agile while practicing precise defense. Lore-wise, the buckler reflects humility. It is not meant to endure blows, but to redirect them. The Wakizashi's hidden pairing. The Wakizashi is found in Gal Cave on the border of Caelid and Limgrave, hidden deep within a place defined by confinement. This short blade scales with dexterity, with minor strength requirements, and inflicts bleed buildup. What makes it unusual is its ability to be power stanced with katanas, despite being classified as a dagger. Mechanically, this allows players to combine the speed of a dagger with the reach and damage of a katana, accelerating bleed buildup dramatically. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects a companion blade, not meant to lead, but to finish. The Highland Axe is focused breath. The Highland Axe is found in Stormvale Castle, resting among war banners and remnants of fallen soldiers. This axe scales primarily with strength, but its defining feature is not damage. When held, it boosts the roar and breath ashes of war, increasing their effectiveness. Mechanically, this allows battle cries and buff-focused skills to last longer or hit harder, turning preparation into power. Lore-wise, the axe reflects war traditions where voice mattered as much as steel. Command. Before conflict, the Demi-Human Queen's staff's uneven growth. The Demi-Human Queen's staff is dropped by the Demi-Human Queen in Weeping Peninsula, an enemy encountered early, but often underestimated. This staff scales with intelligence, but unlike most catalysts, it performs best at lower intelligence levels. Mechanically, this makes it ideal for early sorcerers before transitioning to more specialized staffs later. Lore-wise, the staff reflects improvised magic, knowledge gained without refinement. It works, until it doesn't. The Cleanrot Spear's relentless march. The Cleanrot Spear is dropped by Cleanrot Knights, most commonly encountered in Caelid and within Elfeal, Brace of the Halictree. This heavy spear scales with strength and dexterity, requiring steady physical investment, and benefits greatly from status-focused infusions. Its Ash of War sends the spear lunging forward in repeated thrusts, allowing Tarnished to apply pressure while remaining at a measured distance. Mechanically, it excels in narrow corridors and against enemies that punish overextension. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects the clean rot knights themselves, warriors who advance despite rot consuming their bodies. They did not retreat, they endured. The death ritual spear's lingering cold. The death ritual spear is dropped by deathrite birds, enemies tied to ghost flame and forbidden burial rites. This spear scales with strength, dexterity, and intelligence, favoring hybrid builds that embrace cold magic. Its Ash of War summons ghost flame explosions from the ground ahead, dealing magic damage and rapidly building frostbite. Mechanically, the attack controls space rather than chasing damage, forcing enemies to move or suffer. Lore-wise, the spear reflects a death untouched by the Erdtree. Cold, silent, patient. The battle hammer's early authority. The battle hammer is obtained by defeating a duelist enemy, often found guarding ritual sites and forgotten arenas. This hammer scales primarily with strength, requiring modest investment compared to later colossal weapons. Mechanically, it delivers high poise damage early, allowing Tarnished to stagger enemies before they are ready to retaliate. Its simplicity makes it effective without demanding mastery. Lore-wise, the hammer reflects combat as spectacle, violence performed, not hidden, a reminder that the lands between once cheered for blood. The Carian glintblade staff's delayed precision. The Carian glintblade staff is found within Carrier Manor, among sorcerers loyal to Carian spellcraft. This staff scales with intelligence and boosts glintblade sorceries, spells that strike after a brief delay. Mechanically, this allows Tarnished to pressure enemies indirectly, attacking not where they are, but where they will be. Lore-wise, Carian magic values foresight over force. Victory here is planned, then allowed to arrive. The rusted anchor's counterweight truth. The rusted anchor is found embedded deep within Morn Tunnel on the Weeping Peninsula, resting as if abandoned mid-journey. Despite its appearance, it is classified as a great axe, and it scales primarily with strength, requiring meaningful physical investment. What makes it unusual is its damage type. Instead of dealing standard slash or strike damage, the anchor inflicts pierce damage, allowing it to benefit from counter-hit bonuses when striking enemies during their own attacks. Mechanically, this makes it especially effective for players who favor timing over speed, punishing aggression rather than chasing it. Lore-wise, the anchor represents stalled passage, a tool meant to hold things in place, now used to drive forward. The Dragonclaw Shield's frozen legacy. The Dragonclaw Shield is dropped by a Dragonkin soldier deep within Siofra River, a region filled with remnants of failed attempts to imitate dragons. This medium shield provides solid physical defense and scales modestly with strength. Its defining feature is its skill, which releases a burst of frost-infused lightning in front of the wielder. Mechanically, this allows the shield to function offensively, interrupting enemies and building frostbite without lowering guard. Lore-wise, the shield reflects the Dragonkin's legacy. Power borrowed, never perfected. The Erdsteel Dagger's quiet faith. The Erdsteel Dagger is obtained early in Limgrave, often carried by enemies loyal to the Golden Order. This dagger scales with strength, dexterity, and faith, making it one of the few melee weapons that truly rewards faith investment. Unlike most daggers, it performs best when infused with sacred or flame-based ashes of war. Mechanically, this allows faith builds to maintain fast, close-range options without sacrificing scaling. Lore-wise, the dagger reflects the Golden Order's belief that even small tools can serve divine purpose. Faith does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it cuts quietly. The Azur's glintstone staff's unrestrained flow. Azur's glintstone staff is obtained from primeval sorcerer Azur, found deep within Mount Gelmir, seated in silence after exhausting himself completely. This staff scales heavily with intelligence, offering some of the highest sorcery scaling in the game. Its cost is restraint. All spells cast with the staff consume additional EP, trading efficiency for raw output. Mechanically, this staff rewards burst damage and careful planning, overwhelming enemies quickly rather than sustaining long engagements. Lore-wise, Azur pursued knowledge without limit. The staff reflects that philosophy. Power without moderation. The Serpent God's curved sword's quiet feast. The Serpent God's curved sword can be found in ruin-strewn precipice, resting among the remnants of a forgotten passage beneath the Altus Plateau. This curved sword scales with strength and dexterity, requiring moderate physical investment and accepting ashes of war freely. Its defining trait is subtle, restoring HP on every kill. Mechanically, this makes it especially effective for clearing groups of weaker enemies without consuming flasks, allowing Tarnished to press forward uninterrupted. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects ancient beliefs surrounding serpents, renewal through consumption. Life here is not preserved, it is recycled. The Fingerprint Stone Shield's absolute refusal. The Fingerprint Stone Shield is obtained deep within the subterranean shunning grounds, past one of the most punishing gauntlets in Lendl. This colossal great shield requires immense strength to wield and boasts some of the highest guard boost in the lands between. Mechanically, it allows Tarnished to absorb repeated heavy blows without guard breaking, even against late-game bosses. Its drawback is weight. Movement becomes deliberate, almost ritualistic. Lore-wise, the shield is marked by the frenzied flame. It does not protect through faith or order. It protects by refusing. The Crescent Moon Axe's ceremonial swing. The Crescent Moon Axe can be found early in Stormvale Castle, wielded by knights loyal to Godric. This great axe scales with strength, requiring modest dexterity to control its wide arcs. Its defining feature is its longer than average reach and sweeping attacks, making it effective for crowd control. Mechanically, it balances reach and impact without the sluggishness of heavier axes. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects ceremonial combat, violence performed publicly, meant to be seen as much as felt. The Lusat's Glintstone Staff's final excess. Lusat's Glintstone Staff is obtained by discovering primeval sorcerer Lusat in Celia, hidden behind seals and illusion. This staff offers extremely high intelligence scaling, surpassing most alternatives in raw damage output. Its cost mirrors Azur's philosophy, increased FP consumption for every spell cast. Mechanically, it is best suited for short, overwhelming encounters where damage matters more than efficiency. Lore-wise, Lusat pursued the stars until his body could no longer follow. The staff reflects that pursuit. Power at the edge of collapse. The Vike's War Spear's burning madness. Vike's War Spear is obtained by defeating festering Fingerprint Vike, an invader encountered at the Church of Inhibition in Liurnia of the Lakes. This great spear scales with strength, dexterity, and faith, and naturally inflicts madness build-up, a rare and dangerous status effect. Its ash of war coats the spear in frenzied flame, sending bursts of yellow fire forward that damage enemies and rapidly increase madness. Mechanically, madness drains FP and causes explosive damage when triggered, making the weapon particularly oppressive in PvP and against humanoid enemies. Lore-wise, Vike was once closest to becoming Elden Lord. The spear reflects that failure. Madness here is not chaos, it is despair made contagious. The Great Omen Killer Cleaver's brutal efficiency. The Great Omen Killer Cleaver is dropped by Omen Killer enemies, most commonly found guarding forgotten sites and ruins. This heavy cleaver scales primarily with strength, demanding commitment but offering high raw damage. Its Ash of War causes the wielder to leap forward into a devastating overhead strike, closing distance and punishing retreat. Mechanically, it rewards decisive aggression. Hesitation wastes its potential. Lore-wise, the cleaver reflects its wielders. Violence is not ritual here, it is routine. The icon shield's subtle mercy. The icon shield can be found in Altus Plateau, carried by enemies tied to the Golden Order. This medium shield offers modest defense, but its value lies in its passive H regeneration while equipped. The healing is slow, but constant, accumulating over time into meaningful recovery. Mechanically, it benefits cautious players who favor attrition over burst. Lore-wise, the shield reflects quiet faith, not devotion shouted aloud, but belief carried patiently. The Gelmir Glintstone Staff's volcanic focus. The Gelmir Glintstone Staff is found in Volcano Manor, among sorcerers who abandoned Academy tradition. This staff scales with intelligence and boosts lava-based sorceries, enhancing spells that leave lingering magma. Mechanically, it supports area denial rather than direct damage, shaping the battlefield through persistence. Lore-wise, Gelmir sorcery rejected refinement in favor of transformation. Magic here is not studied, it erupts. The frenzied flame seal's unstable faith. The frenzied flame seal is obtained deep beneath Lendel, within the subterranean shunning grounds. After accepting the mark of the three fingers, this sacred seal scales primarily with faith, but also gains scaling from strength and dexterity, a rare trait among casting tools. Mechanically, it enhances frenzied flame incantations, increasing madness buildup and damage. Unlike traditional faith tools, it rewards aggression and proximity rather than restraint. Lore-wise, the seal embodies belief without structure. Faith here is not order, it is surrender. The Giant Crusher's absolute weight. The Giant Crusher is found in a carriage chest in Altus Plateau, resting as if forgotten by those who could no longer lift it. This colossal hammer demands enormous strength, among the highest requirements of any weapon. In return, it delivers some of the most devastating poise and stance damage in the game. Mechanically, each strike threatens to break even the strongest enemies, but only if the wielder commits fully. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects dominance through mass. It does not strike often. It strikes once, and expects the world to move. The Anspur Rapier's corrupt precision. The Anspur Rapier is dropped by an NPC invader encountered near the Shaded Castle, a region steeped in decay and poison. This thrusting sword scales with strength and dexterity, and uniquely inflicts scarlet rot buildup by default. When infused, it can apply multiple status effects simultaneously, layering rot with poison or bleed. Mechanically, this makes it exceptionally effective in prolonged encounters where attrition wins battles. Lore-wise, the rapier reflects subtle corruption. Decay does not rush, it infiltrates. The Staff of the Guilty's blood-bound magic. The Staff of the Guilty is found in the mountaintops of the Giants, carried by enemies bound to thorn sorcery. This staff scales with faith rather than intelligence, and boosts thorn sorceries that consume HP when cast. Mechanically, it trades safety for power, converting life into damage. Lore-wise, thorn magic is punishment incarnate. Power is paid for in blood. The Glintstone Chris's focused release. The Glintstone Chris is obtained by completing Sorceress Sellen's questline, receiving it as a reward tied to betrayal, loyalty, and consequence. This dagger scales primarily with intelligence, an unusual trait for such a small blade, and requires only minimal physical stats to wield. Its Ash of War, Glintstone Dart, fires a fast, FP-efficient sorcery projectile that can be chained repeatedly. Mechanically, this allows sorcerers to pressure enemies at range while conserving resources, making it especially effective against agile foes. Lore-wise, the dagger represents condensed sorcery, power refined until nothing unnecessary remains. It does not overwhelm, it pierces. The butchering knives sustain momentum. The butchering knife is dropped by Anastasia, Tarnished Eater, an invader encountered multiple times across the lands between. This great axe scales with strength and dexterity and features a unique effect, restoring HP with every hit. Unlike healing on kill effects, this regeneration triggers on contact, rewarding constant engagement. Mechanically, it excels in prolonged encounters where retreat is risky. Lore-wise, the blade reflects its former owner. Violence here is not explosive, it is continuous. The Beast Crest Heater Shield's balanced guard. The Beast Crest Heater Shield is obtained early, often carried by soldiers loyal to the Erd Tree. This medium shield offers solid physical damage negation and a respectable guard boost, making it a reliable all-purpose defense. Mechanically, it supports both blocking and guard counterplay without excessive stamina drain. Lore-wise, the shield reflects adaptability, a balance between protection and movement. Not every defense must be absolute. The Rotten Crystal Staff's inevitable spread. The Rotten Crystal Staff is found in Elphael, Brace of the Halic Tree, carried by Crystallians touched by rot. This staff scales with intelligence and enhances Scarlet Rot sorceries, increasing build-up and damage. Mechanically, it allows casters to apply rot from a distance, turning attrition into strategy. Lore-wise, the staff represents transformation rather than decay. Rot here is not weakness, it is persistence. The Celebrant's Sickle's festive cruelty. The Celebrant's Sickle is dropped by celebrants in Dominula, Windmill Village, a place where dance and execution blur together. This curved blade scales with dexterity, with light strength requirements, and has modest base damage. Its unusual effect is subtle. Each successful hit grants a small number of runes. Mechanically, this makes it inefficient for combat but symbolically powerful, turning violence into reward in the most literal way. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects Dominula's rituals. Death here is not mourned, it is celebrated. The Sun Realm Shield's quiet lineage. The Sun Realm Shield is found in Stormvale Castle, carried by soldiers loyal to Godric. This medium shield offers solid physical negation and moderate stability without excessive weight. Mechanically, it serves as a dependable early to mid-game option for players learning guard counters and stamina management. Lore-wise, the shield bears the faded emblem of a once proud realm. Its sun no longer shines, but the symbol remains. The Duelist Great Axe's bloodied spectacle. The Duelist Great Axe is dropped by duelist enemies, often encountered guarding colosseums and forgotten arenas. This colossal axe scales heavily with strength, delivering immense poise damage with wide, brutal swings. Mechanically, it excels in crowd control, forcing space through sheer intimidation. Lore-wise, the weapon reflects combat as performance. Violence here was not private. It was entertainment, the Staff of the Guilty's thorned cost. The Staff of the Guilty is found in the mountaintops of the giants, carried by heretical servants of thorn sorcery. This staff scales with faith, rather than intelligence, and enhances thorn-based incantations that consume HP when cast. Mechanically, it trades safety for damage, converting life directly into power. Lore-wise, thorn magic is punishment made manifest. Power is never free. It is extracted. The scorpion's stinger's silent rot. The scorpion's stinger is found deep within Lake of Rot, resting near the remnants of travelers who did not make it through. This dagger scales primarily with dexterity, with minimal strength requirements, and uniquely inflicts scarlet rot build-up on hit. Mechanically, it allows light, fast attacks to apply one of the deadliest status effects in the game, making it effective for hit and withdraw tactics. Because rot persists after disengagement, the weapon rewards patience rather than aggression. Lore-wise, the dagger reflects the lake itself. Death here is not immediate, it lingers. The Erdtree Great Shield's reflected faith. The Erdtree Great Shield is obtained by defeating tree sentinels guarding sacred sites, most notably near the capital outskirts. This massive shield requires high strength and faith to wield effectively, and boasts exceptional holy damage negation. Its unique skill reflects incoming holy spells back at their caster, turning devotion into defense. Mechanically, this allows faith builds to counter enemies who rely heavily on sacred magic. Lore-wise, the shield embodies the Golden Order's belief that faith should be self-sustaining. What is given returns. The Axe of Godfrey's grounded authority. The Axe of Godfrey is acquired by defeating Horalu warrior and exchanging his remembrance. This colossal axe scales primarily with strength, demanding heavy investment and rewarding it with immense physical damage. Its Ash of War unleashes a shockwave stomp, reflecting Godfrey's fighting style, power delivered through the earth itself. Mechanically, it excels at stance breaking and crowd control. Lore-wise, the axe reflects rulership through force. Godfrey did not command from afar. He stood, and the ground listened. The Staff of the Guilty's barbed devotion, altern, focus. The Staff of the Guilty enhances thorn sorceries, magic that consumes the caster's own HP. Mechanically, this creates a direct trade, vitality for damage. In prolonged encounters, misuse is fatal. Used carefully, it becomes overwhelming. Lore-wise, thorn magic represents punishment willingly accepted. Pain here is not a consequence, it is the price. The Black Knife's lingering absence. The Black Knife is obtained from Black Knife assassins, enemies bound to the Night of the Black Knives, and scattered across the lands between. This dagger scales with dexterity and faith, requiring modest investment but rewarding precision. Its Ash of War releases a blade of destined death, reducing enemy maximum HP and applying damage over time. Mechanically, this makes the weapon especially effective against bosses with large health pools, where attrition matters more than burst. Lore-wise, the blade carries a fragment of stolen death. It does not strike loudly. It removes something that never returns. The Shield of the Guilty's quiet punishment. The Shield of the Guilty is found early in Limgrave, carried by enemies bound to heretical punishment rites. This small shield offers limited protection, but its defining trait is symbolic rather than practical. It bears thorns, a reminder that defense itself can cause harm. Mechanically, it functions like a standard small shield, but its low weight makes it ideal for parry-focused builds. Lore-wise, the shield reflects penance. Protection here is not comfort, it is reminder. The Great Club's primal authority. The great club is dropped by large demi-humans, most commonly encountered in Limgrave and surrounding regions. This colossal weapon scales heavily with strength and requires significant endurance to wield effectively. Despite its size, its moveset is straightforward. Wide swings, overwhelming force. Mechanically, it excels at stance breaking and punishing groups of enemies. Lore-wise, the club represents power before refinement. Violence here is instinct, the staff of the guilty's final cost. Closing focus, thorn sorcery, enhanced by the staff of the guilty, consumes the caster's own life. Mechanically, this makes every spell a decision rather than a habit. Overuse ends fights quickly, including your own. Lore-wise, thorn magic reflects a belief that suffering itself is sacred. Power is not granted, it is endured. In the lands between, weapons are rarely just tools. They are memories that learned how to cut, beliefs given weight, regrets sharpened into form. Every blade you held tonight, whether forged from gold, bone, rot, or flame, came from something that ended. A kingdom, a promise, a person. Some weapons asked for patience, others demanded urgency. Some rewarded control, others punished hesitation. And none of them were neutral. Even the simplest spear carried a philosophy. Even the heaviest hammer reflected a choice. Because in Elden Ring, how you fight always says more than what you fight with. Strength builds were not about power. They were about commitment. Dexterity was never about speed. It was about restraint. Faith was not belief. It was endurance. And intelligence was never knowledge alone. It was curiosity carried too far. You may have noticed something else too. Many of the strongest weapons didn't want you to rush. They asked you to wait, to space, to breathe. Even madness crept in slowly. Even rot took its time. The world is not conquered here. It erodes, and in that erosion, Tarnished are shaped, not into heroes, but into survivors who adapt. Weapons that healed on kill taught momentum. Weapons that drained life taught cost. Weapons that broke stance taught patience. None of them told you what was right. They simply showed consequences. And when the last boss fell and the credits rolled, you were still holding something. A sword made from a god. A blade shaped by regret. Or maybe just a simple tool you trusted. That choice mattered. Because in the end, Elden Ring never asked if you would win. It asked who you would become while trying. So if your thoughts begin to drift now, that's perfectly fine. Let the echoes fade. Let the weapons rest. You're listening to Games Lore to sleep. The lands between will still be here tomorrow. Unchanged, unforgiving, and quietly waiting.